Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my weekly compendium, ending Monday, November 14th, 2022. Case file number 823, written by OK to Decay, the Chinese master of spacetime. This happened in late summer, early fall 2020. At this time, due to the world event, wearing a mask was mandatory in all indoor places. This included public transport. I, 22 female, live in the Netherlands, specifically in a relatively new city that was built completely centered around public transport. Buses depart every few minutes in all different directions to cover the entire city. No matter where you live, there's a bus stop within walking distance. It's quite difficult to commute via car when traveling from one neighborhood to another. Only the bus and bike lanes go through the neighborhoods. When traveling by car, you usually have to drive all the way around the neighborhoods. The city was built this way to limit traffic in the streets and therefore ensure safety. This is important for context later on. I worked a morning shift in the next town over, 7 in the morning to 3 p.m. After work, I took the train home and arrived in my city around 3:30. My boyfriend, 25 male, picked me up at the central station and we went to grab some takeout at our favorite Chinese/Surinamese restaurant. We sat down in a small park and enjoyed our food outside, since the weather was still pretty nice around this time of year. Around 4:30, a mutual friend, 22 male, of ours, arrived at the central station. He joined us until my boyfriend and I decided to go home around 5:30. Our friend decided to go home as well, and we all walked towards the central station to catch the bus. All of us needed to get into the same bus as our friend's home is on the same route, just a few stops earlier than ours. We got into the bus and sat down on the back seat, 4 seats next to each other. I sat in the seat next to the window, my boyfriend sat next to me, and our friend sat in the seat next to the door, leaving 1 seat between my boyfriend and him. The bus got busy pretty quickly, since rush hour had started. The seat in front of me, facing me, not facing forward, stayed empty. Kind of odd since some people were standing due to no more seats being available. At the very last moment, a man stepped into the bus and sat down in that seat. He had a bag with Chinese/Surinamese takeout from the exact restaurant my boyfriend and I went to earlier that day. I pointed it out to him and we joked about the coincidence since it's a pretty unknown restaurant and slightly hidden in a side street. The man was pretty recognizable, red plaid button-up, worn-down shoes, dark blue jeans, a blue cap, and he wore his mask inside out and upside down. The bus departed and suddenly my allergies started acting up horribly. This was before I had been to the hospital, and I wasn't on medication yet. I was used to allergy flare-ups, but not so randomly. I felt my nose running under my mask, and I didn't have any tissues with me. I wanted to use my sleeve so badly, but I figured that was disgusting, especially since someone was facing me. From this point forward, my focus was completely on the man in front of me, and hoping he would get off so I could wipe my nose. He eventually got off. Our mutual friend had gotten off the stop before him. I wiped my nose and my allergy flare-up started disappearing as fast as it had appeared. My boyfriend and I started casually chatting while the bus continued on its route. It was driving very fast. Chauffeurs often do this so they arrive at the stations, mainly bus stops where they have to wait until the planned departure time to leave, early, and as a result they can have a quick smoking break. The bus got to one of the main bus stops and the chauffeur got off to smoke. He got there 5 minutes early. The same man that had gotten off earlier was waiting at the bus stop and stepped into the bus again. Sat down in the same seat across from me, mask upside down and inside out. Looked like he hadn't even taken it off, and the takeout bag on his lap. He looked at me and I looked at him. I felt shivers all over my body. My allergies started flaring up again. I looked away and stayed like that until my boyfriend and I got to our stop. We quickly left the bus. The man stayed inside the bus as it continued on its route. Both my boyfriend and I were absolutely spooked and couldn't figure out how that was possible. We went over all the possibilities, but nothing added up. This man couldn't have been there. It's impossible. He got off that bus. There's no way he could have made it to that stop before our bus got there. There's no car, no motorbike, nothing could have gotten there before that bus did. And yet, he was calmly waiting at the bus stop, taking food from the city center in his hand. Creepy file number 58, written by Don't Take Me Lightly, Yoo-hoo from the Darkness. This happened 2 nights ago. I was taking my dog out to the bathroom in my backyard for the last time that night, around 1:30 a.m. I have a decent-sized backyard, and there aren't many streetlights or light pollution around, so it was basically pitch black apart from the torch on my phone. Anyway, the dog goes to the bathroom and I tell her, "Good girl, let's go inside." And instantly, I hear someone call, "Yoo-hoo," out from somewhere I couldn't see. It sounded like they were just at the fence line, fairly close to where I was, maybe 10 meters away. It was definitely a person, not an animal sound. They didn't scream it loud or even shout it very loudly, just called it out sort of creepily, and it was obviously directed towards me. I nearly crapped my pants, and my dog was super startled and started growling and barking instantly. She was looking exactly towards where it came from. Anyway, I wasn't sticking around, so I bolted inside with my dog and locked the doors. I just don't know who it was or why they did it. It was really late. There was no other light source, and I don't know who would be wandering around in the pitch black like that. I live in a very low-crime neighborhood, as crime is basically unheard of. Now, every time I take my dog out for the loo, I feel like I've walked into a horror movie. Some people suggested owls. No. I know the species of owl where I live, and there's very few, and they're very rare to see. None of them sound like "yoo-hoo" in an older woman's voice. Some people suggested neighbors. I'm so close with my neighbors that I babysit their kids, look after and feed their animals, tend to their garden if they ask, etc. They would have told me if they had an old grandma that likes to walk about at night and to keep an eye out. I asked some neighbors today and no one saw, heard, knew anything that night. Although one neighbor said they'd check their cameras and if they see someone, they'll send it to me. Case file number 824, written by Red Bell Pepper, The Mysterious Case of Solar Teleportation. This anomaly, I guess is the best word to describe it, happened a few months ago. Frankly, I still have trouble believing it myself, so take this writing as me trying to come to grips with what happened, and that there's no explanation I can muster that really fits. I was waking up, a normal day like any other, just earlier. Groggy, getting my shower and coffee, soon to set off to work right after. Had to get to the office a little sooner than typical because of presentation prep work I still had to do. Procrastination is a nasty mental bug that I can't seem to shake. Anyways, set off driving, heading in. Usual commute is maybe 30 minutes, but it's earlier now, 7 a.m. Less traffic, so I figured I could make it a few minutes earlier. This was a few months ago, summertime. The sun was already rising. Get on the highway and I'm off. Only I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach as soon as I got on the highway. I couldn't place it exactly. Everything looked normal, but I knew it wasn't. Almost like the people who are on their deathbeds and know when they're about to die. I think it's an actual medical symptom, a sense of overwhelming dread. That'd be the closest way I could describe it. By the way, I'm 34 and in pretty good shape. So I don't think this was an actual medical issue. I'm driving along the highway. I noticed the sun move on the horizon a little in my periphery. It wasn't dramatic, and I'm of course not looking directly at the sun for obvious reasons, but it did flow ever so slightly. For some reason, when my brain registered this, I just felt ill, seriously sick, had to pull into the shoulder and get out, puke. Eventually, I calmed down and actually started to feel positively elated. It was a wild roller coaster of a morning, let's say. But when I get back into the car and quickly check my phone, I realize there's 45 minutes of unaccounted time, if not a few minutes more. I expected to make the trip to work by 7:25 a.m. at the latest. Yet I'm still 15 plus minutes out and it's somehow past 8 p.m. This is impossible to an infinite degree. I sat there just staring at my phone, not able to process this. The rest of the commute, which I started back minutes later because I was stunned, was fine. Nothing else weird has happened to me since. I spent the whole day and many days since trying to logically explain this. Only thing I can think is somehow I blacked out and went on autopilot, pulled onto the shoulder for over 45 minutes, sat there doing nothing, then went back to driving and my consciousness returned. Why the hell would that happen? I did see a doctor a couple weeks after this and told him I had a memory lapse. They conducted various tests but found nothing wrong. My brain is in tip-top shape, as is my heart, as far as they can tell. Bonus file. Written by Snoo Suggestions, 9830. The house that costs more than money. Friend invited me to the second viewing of the apartment they were interested in buying. The apartment itself was great, but it came with a room which was part of the attic, which the realtor said was used by the residents as a meeting room. She took us up to show the room, and it was odd. It was a bedroom-sized room with no windows and no source of light, as the light fixture on the ceiling was broken. We had to use a light from our phone as a flashlight. All that was in the room was an old cupboard, which had half-glass doors with a green velvet-looking curtain behind them, and some chairs in a corner. When the realtor was out of earshot, I turned to my friend and said, "Oh my god, this is like something from a horror movie, where the residents of the building are in a cult. What the hell is in that cupboard?" My friend laughed and repeated what I said back to the realtor when she returned. The realtor herself then confessed that she also thought it was creepy. I asked out of curiosity what's in the cupboard, and she said it's locked, so she doesn't know, but she agreed with me that it looks like an altar or something creepy. My friend still loves the place. It had a nice vibe otherwise. I just thought that room was very strange to have resident meetings in. Creepy file number 59. Written by Ruga Ru 2217. My friend was a murderer. I remembered this event after reading a similar creepy story on here and thought I'd post it. I went to school with this guy. We never dated or anything like that, just friends, but not overly close. I didn't see him for a few years after we got out of school, but we ran into each other when I was pregnant with my son. We hugged, talked for a while, and then went our separate ways. Several years later, I was watching the evening news and I heard them say a familiar name. I immediately recognized the name of my old friend since it was fairly unusual. They said he was arrested for killing his girlfriend. He apparently stalked her, but was able to get her to come to his apartment to get her belongings. He then abducted and shot her. He drove around with her body in the car for 4 days. I don't mean that the body was in the trunk either. Her body was in the passenger seat and he would talk to her and take her places, such as visiting his father's grave. I was even able to find the article from 1991. Bonus file written by Miss Jellybean. The Ethereal Intruders. I, 25 female, live alone in a one-bedroom flat. My bedroom is on the top floor. Kitchen, living room, and bathroom are down a flight of stairs. The front door is down another flight of stairs. A couple months ago, I woke up, went on my phone for a bit, and then decided to get up. Before I moved to get up, I heard 3 distinct, clear knocks on my closed bedroom door. I remembered that the estate agent said that I was due to have an inspection soon, and assumed it was them. I couldn't be bothered to deal with them, and found it weird that they just let themselves in without ringing or anything, so I pretended to be asleep and didn't respond. I waited. No more knocks, but I also didn't hear anyone walking away down the stairs, and I didn't hear anyone entering or leaving my flat. As I was lying there, waiting for them to leave, I realized that I had locked myself out several months ago, had to have the lock replaced, and hadn't gotten around to taking a set of the new keys to the estate agents. I was obviously very freaked out at that point. How did these people get in? I forced myself to get up after a while. I really needed to pee. And no one else was in my flat. I've asked friends and family, and they were all as freaked out and confused as I was. Anyone else have any explanations? Because I'm stumped. File number 825, written by Nick Captain. The Transdimensionall debit card. I went on a business trip up country a couple weeks back. En route, I went through a toll gate and used my company card to pay at the booth. The teller handed back my card and paper receipt, which I placed in the center console. A couple hours later, I stopped to get a coffee and take a break. When I looked in the console, my card was gone and I could only find the paper slip. I searched for the card but had no luck. Thinking I may have left the card at the toll booth or it had somehow fallen out of a pocket somewhere along the way, I called the bank and put a temporary hold on the card. When I got to my destination, I unpacked and searched the car thoroughly. Under seats, carpets, every nook and cranny. Still nothing. So I called the bank again, ordered a new card which was delivered a couple days later, changed all my app settings to the new card number. A lot of admin work and return debit orders later, everything is sorted out and up to date. Exactly a week later to the day, I'm driving along the highway alone. I glance down at the console, and there is my lost card, in broad daylight, in exactly the position I put it, with the paper slip from the toll booth. Bonus file, written by Chelly Bean 2016. My memoirs of horror from my childhood home. This happened years ago, but I remember everything clearly, and every time I think or talk about it, the feelings come back. When I was 8, my mom and stepdad moved us to a country home. I have 2 younger siblings as well, so there were 5 of us that lived there. This house was always a little creepy, but it held so much more than just a creepy feeling. I've been able to see things from a very young age. I don't talk much about it because honestly, you always get mixed feelings, so I avoid it. Anyway, when we first moved in, I kept seeing a little boy. He was always in my little brother's room or the kitchen, and he cried a lot, all of the time. I was 8, so I didn't really know why, but I always tried to ask what was wrong. He didn't talk back. I kept telling my mom that a little boy in the kitchen kept waking me up at night, but she never believed me. For a few years, it was just a little boy, but that all changed very, very quickly. Right before my mom and stepdad divorced, they fought all the time. The environment in the house definitely felt hostile, and then he moved out and things went downhill fast. At first, it was just a few extras I'd see at night, usually roaming our L-shaped hallway. Then, weird things started happening. I've never been a great sleeper, so I'd always be awake at night. I'd watch my door open and close by itself. I'd hear banging all throughout the hallway, and when I had to go do laundry in the back room that also housed the entrance to the basement, I'd instantly get a heavy feeling. I went down one time. I got to the second step up from the bottom and took a look around. I saw people chained to the walls, staring at me. I literally ran so fast. I cried and tried to tell my mom, but she told me I was lying. I wasn't. She started believing after she had her own scary encounter, but I'm not sure she'd want me to share it. Anyways, things kept progressing. We couldn't keep a light bulb in the light fixture in the dining room because as soon as we'd change it, the bulb would literally explode, leaving shards of glass all over the floor. I watched a kitchen chair fly across the room, slamming so hard against the wall it left a hole there. We had a lamp in the living room that fell over every single night at the same time. Towards the end of our time there, we slept in the living room with the fireplace on because my mom couldn't afford propane. We had a blanket over the doorway, and when it was open, because someone went to the bathroom, I'd see a lady in white on the dining room floor. She said one sentence and I'll never forget it. "He's coming." She'd repeat it until she had disappeared. My theory is that she was giving us a warning about the demon that paid us a visit every night. He was evil. He was definitely set on making us leave or hurting us. He made his presence well known. Tormenting us was his favorite activity. We always went down the long hallways in pairs after things started getting bad. The one time I didn't take someone, I ended up with scratch marks. Nothing followed us when we moved though. Which is amazing, but I'm very thankful for it. Only one person has lived in that house since we left years ago. He lasted 6 months before he called it quits. It stands empty now, at the end of the long driveway. I've been back once. It wasn't a pleasant experience. The house is starting to cave in. I'm sure the farmer will tear it down and connect all his fields, finally. I do have one more piece of information that I love to share about it. When I did research, I found out the ground the house stood on was at one point an Indian burial ground. Later, the point or hill became home to a courthouse for a little town, and they did in fact use the basement as a jail, and they did chain people to the walls. The town died out, and a family bought the ground, tearing down the courthouse and building a house over the basement. The house burned down, killing the family, which included a young boy. And the house that we lived in was constructed in the same spot. Here's some more details on my childhood home. First up, my mom's experience. I will share it. Before we all moved into the living room, her room was at the very end of the hallway, and the bathroom was in between us. It was a normal night, typical lamp falling and door slamming. Eventually, I was able to close my eyes. About an hour later, I was startled awake and I knew instantly something was wrong. I got out of bed and went straight to my mom's room. She was flat on her back in her bed, with her arms crossed against her chest, and I could tell she was trying to scream. I ran to her bed and all of a sudden it's like whatever had a hold of her vanished because she just went limp. She sat up and started screaming. I was scared for her. She ended up sleeping with my sister and I that night in our bedroom. We didn't talk about that night again until just a year or so ago, and she described in detail what happened. She said she was sleeping, and then she woke up out of a dead sleep, staring straight at the ceiling. My mom never sleeps on her back. She physically can't. She was confused and tried to move, but she said it felt like she was being held down by some force. She said she couldn't breathe or talk or even scream. She said that it felt like a pair of hands wrapped around her neck and just started squeezing. When I walked in and ran to her, whatever it was let her go. The last thing she saw before she could finally move was a shadow face floating up into the ceiling. She never slept in that room again. She actually moved her bed into my room instead. When the spirit was present, the house was very heavy. Most of the others that occupied the place were quiet when he was there. His constant torture was enough to drive us insane. He was the cause of most everything that happened. I'm sure he's the one who scratched me. Being alone in the house was a no-no. If you were the only one there, he would do everything in his power to show his presence. One evening, my mom had a 4th of July party. Literally everyone was outside. It was late, but everyone was still good with hanging out around the fire. I made the mistake of going inside by myself. Had I known that not a single person was in there, I would have stayed outside. I went into the kitchen to get a drink. As I was standing there, about to open the fridge, the cabinet that held the plates slammed open. I knew I needed to get out, but I was frozen. The next thing I knew, my mom's glass plates were flying directly towards me. I got hit by several before I snapped back into my reality and got out of there. I never told my mom what truly happened, I just said I broke the plates. Another time, my brother and I were playing hide and seek. It was my turn to count, so I stayed in the living room. Once time was up, I started looking. He had to be in the house, that was the rule. I searched everywhere, high and low. The last place I looked was the laundry room. When I entered, I heard my brother crying. I tried to find him, but I couldn't, which meant the last place for him to be was the basement. I walked over to the door and it was closed. We never closed that door just because it was so hard to get open. I struggled, but finally I got it. My brother came bolting up the stairs, crying like someone had tried to hurt him. Here's what he told me happened. He had gone into the basement only to have the door slam shut behind him. He was at the bottom of the stairs and he swore that a black shadow was running down them trying to get him. He said he backed himself into the corner. Apparently, he started hearing a voice say he was going to die. He didn't know what to do, so he cried, and that's when I opened the door. He said the shadow vanished. I believe with everything in me that one of us would have ended up seriously injured or worse if we had stayed in the house. Towards the end, I felt like he had a hold on all of us. Our moods and personalities began to take shape as very angry people. I'm sure his energy caused that. A couple days before we moved out, we were all asleep in the living room. The TV was on and so was the light, so it wasn't completely dark. I woke up to something whispering in my ear. All I could make out was run. Then suddenly there was a loud crashing sound, like glass had been broken. It was so loud everyone else sat straight up out of their beds. We were all trying to figure out what happened. Eventually, we all decided we needed to go walk to the bathroom and take turns with the other 3 standing guard. When we got to the beginning of the hallway, my mom flipped on the light. We all stopped dead in our tracks. Every single picture that my mom had hung on the wall in the hallway was on the ground. There was glass everywhere. None of us could move. We stood there forever trying to decide what to do. That was our final straw. We decided to get the heck out of there. My mom took a couple days off work to pack the house while we were at school. She ended up leaving the house in the middle of that day and didn't come back until we were with her to finish packing. She was sitting on the living room floor, packing all the DVDs into a box. All of a sudden, her phone started playing the scary "I see you" sound. She immediately got up because she knew that someone was calling her. When she picked up the phone and said hello, the only response she got was heavy breathing. She quickly hung up and tried to pack some more, but it kept happening. She actually ended up smashing that phone because she was in panic mode. She grabbed her stuff and left. We never stayed in that house again. Once we got out of there and adjusted to normal life, we felt lighter. It literally felt like a weight was lifted off our shoulder. Our family had been helping us to get our stuff out. Once the last load was out, the electricity was shut off. My uncle decided he wanted the air conditioner, so he went out to get it and he said he pulled around back to the laundry room door. When he got there, he said the laundry room door was open. He walked slowly towards it. When he made it almost in the house, he realized the basement door was fully open and the light in the basement was on. He realized that the light being on wasn't possible and he booked it out of there. The air conditioners were never recovered. To this day, my sister and I are the only ones that have dared to step foot on the property. Neither of us were alone when we did. My family doesn't talk about it anymore. It's better that way. Case file number 826, written by Agnostos Theos Logos. The mysterious case of lost chai. I had a pumpkin chai iced latte at the cafe. Ordered a second one, don't judge me, and poured what was left of the first one on top. Got in the car, drove to the pizza place, got pizza, and went home. Got out of the freaking car, put my freaking drink on top of the box while I keyed into the house, went inside and put the pizza on the TV tray by the chair. Sat down, opened the pizza box to have a slice. Instantly looked for the spilled chai. No chai. Cleaned the whole damn house, the car, checked the Ring camera. Sure enough, it's on the pizza box when I went in. It's not on the ground outside, inside, under the car, in or on top of the car, in the house, the fridge, the freezer, or in any of the trash cans. I'm so freaking bitter. It's like I forgot the chai was on top of the box when I opened it, and then it was just gone as I did. I can't explain it. It's nowhere. Case file number 827, written by Nemesis 824. Pickup truck vanished before my eyes. This morning I was taking my usual route to work, which consists of roughly 50 miles urban and freeway driving. Approaching the end of the urban area, there is a light and a T-shaped intersection. Imagine I'm driving to the stoplight, coming from the downside of the T. Red light, 3 cars in front of me, mind you. There are 2 lanes, one dark red BMW, one dark blue minivan, and a white pickup truck. The white pickup truck was stopped behind the blue minivan. The driver's turn signal was set to the right. It was such an odd choice since you can only go left there. I turned to my mother to tell her how she shouldn't drive. She asked what I meant. I tell her, look, the white truck is doing an illegal turn, which is dangerous and stupid to say the least. She asks again, what white truck? I turn around just as I'm approaching the stoplight. Now, there are only 2 cars, the red BMW and the blue van. We look around. Nothing. If he did overtake and sped off from a light, we would still be able to fully see him for about a mile. Take into consideration, all this happens in the span of 2 seconds. No vehicle could pull this off. Doesn't matter if it's 1,000,000 horsepower. Just baffles my mind. Creepy file number 60, written by Kaylin7. Chopped meat. My family owns a boutique store in a very big city here in the south. Our boutique is located in a very wealthy neighborhood, but that doesn't say much. If you go not even a mile north, south, west, or east, you'll enter rough areas of the city. With that being said, we have a lot of homeless, drug addicts, and sketchy people in general coming into our stores. When these people come in, we are also nice, respectful, and treat them just like we would our normal customers. We try not to judge by their appearances. However, we don't tolerate begging, stealing, or soliciting. So we've all had our share of weird encounters at our store. However, I think my most recent encounter was the creepiest. Last week, getting ready to close, I was tidying up the store when a woman came in. I greeted her as normal and everything seemed smooth sailing. She was looking around and engaging in conversation about some of our pieces when all of a sudden things changed quickly. The vibe and feeling of the room just felt eerie, so I moved behind the counter just to create a barrier. She began by grabbing one of our candles that had the saying, "I love you to the moon and back," across the front of it. I think this is what originally triggered her. She began talking about her family, how she would read the book, "I love you to the moon and back," to her triplets that she didn't know she even had. She then started telling me about her life being married to Ryan Gosling, and how she recently killed him because he kept poisoning her and hiding her 3 sets of triplets and daughter from her. At this point, I was just listening. I didn't want to upset her any more than she already was. When she finished, she began walking the store again, telling me about how she just got out of jail for stabbing someone. And at this point, she gets about 4 feet away from the counter and tilts her head, looks me in the eyes and says, "I really feel like chopping you up right now." We were the only 2 in the store at the time, and I was in shock. I had no clue what was about to happen. Up until then, she was just rambling. This was the first instance of her showing aggression. Luckily, seconds after that statement, another customer, one of my regulars, came in, and the woman, who just told me she wanted to chop me up, grabbed her stuff and walked out of the door. My regular could feel the tension as I rushed behind her and locked us in the store. So, to the lady who wants to chop me up, let's not meet ever again. Creepy file number 61, written by Significant Swan 159. Never open the door. The twins, 14 years old, and I went to bed a while ago. I'm still recovering from an infection, so I fell asleep very quickly, and I probably was not entirely as quick thinking as usual. About half an hour ago, I woke up because someone was knocking on my front door. I came down and, first mistake, opened the front door. A young man was there, asking about someone called James. My youngest brother is called James, so this confused me at first, but James has never lived here. I tried to tell him he had got the wrong address. He carried on talking, and it was clear he wasn't talking about my brother. I told him again that he had the wrong address, and he became quite aggressive. He said I was lying, and then he asked me to let him in so that he could charge his phone, and then I will show you I'm at the right house. I tried to close the door, and he blocked it with his foot. After a brief struggle, I managed to get the door shut. When I closed the door, he carried on knocking for a while and started yelling that he wasn't a scumbag and I was treating him like a scumbag. He wasn't going to hurt me, he just wanted to charge his phone. Eventually, he went away, but I am really shaken up and I'm feeling really vulnerable. I am lucky because we have great neighbors and I know if they heard something they would come running, but they clearly didn't hear this. How can I feel secure when there's only me and the kids in the house? We are taking self-defense classes, but I'm very aware that tonight could have ended very differently if he had gotten into my house. My neighbors, both male, retired dad and his 19-year-old construction worker son, both built like brick crap houses, have just found 2 lads hiding in their back garden. As soon as they were found, they ran for it. Son grabbed one of them, and now they're waiting for the police. Their garden shares a fence with my garden. I don't recognize the lad who's been grabbed, but it's possible that his accomplice is the guy who tried to get in last night, or it may be completely coincidental. Neighbor's son has a high-end motorbike that is very desirable and parked in the back garden for that reason. Be vigilant, people. I will definitely be hiking up some security and I will never open the door again unless I know who it is, because I opened the door tonight when I heard a neighbor say my name. Case file number 828, written by Becky Louise 1. Traveling at the speed of glitches. This happened a few years ago, and it's only because I've, 30 female, found myself here on the sub that I've remembered it. The weirdest thing happened to me and my 26 male boyfriend one night. So for a little context, I'll just say I live pretty close to a motorway, and there's this one huge roundabout just off of it that you can take to get to a couple destinations called Ainley Top. Anyway, it's a big roundabout with 3 lanes and 5 exits. The exit that takes us in the direction to my house is the second one as you come off the motorway, and it's distinct because it's the only exit on this roundabout where you have to go under a bridge and it's all lit up. This roundabout is always busy because it separates 2 towns. Here's what happened, and it all happened quite fast. We came off the motorway, and it was about an hour or so after rush hour, so it wasn't super busy, but it wasn't dead either. So we're driving towards the roundabout in the right lane of 2 lanes, and we need to move to the left in order to be able to get onto the left lane of the roundabout and exit at the correct point. As we're about to switch lanes, another car that is the same as ours, significant or not, cuts us up and we end up missing the exit. So I'm like, oh, for crying out loud, we're gonna have to go all the way back around now. This was annoying because I needed to wee. But hey ho, so we start to drive around again and reach the lights at the 3rd exit of the roundabout, which are red, so we wait. When they turn green, we set off, and then the weirdest thing happened. Just as quickly as we blinked, we were driving down the exit we were originally supposed to take. We were coming out of the other end of the bridge with the lights. Absolutely impossible because we'd missed that exit and we needed to do a whole other loop of the roundabout to get back to it again. Not to mention the fact that the exit road itself is quite lengthy before you reach the bridge. I use this roundabout multiple times a week. I know it like the back of my hand, and I've lived in this town all my life. At first I thought it might just have been me being tired and not concentrating, but I looked at my boyfriend and his face was just like, what the hell? I said, did you just see that happen as well? And he was like, yeah, what the heck just happened? Absolutely no explanation for it at all, and we were just weirded out for the rest of the night. We were totally sober. I was a little tired, but absolutely lucid like normal. So weird. Creepy file number 62, written by Robotic Arrow, the Meow of Terror. It was around 12 a.m. I was home alone and sitting on the couch reading, by TV light, which is not good lighting by the way, struggling to fall asleep. Our couch rests up against a window with shutters that basically remain closed to keep the house cool. While I was reading, I heard a slightly playful sounding meow. I froze for a moment. I wasn't sure if I heard correctly. It was bizarre, and it was a very clear human saying, meow. I remained frozen, and about 2 minutes later, another booming, meow, came from behind me again. The window was not open. The shutters were also closed, but the voice was right behind me. A chill went through my body, starting at the base of my neck, and I sank down further into the couch until I basically melted into the floor and hid down in front of the couch. I laid along the inside lining so I couldn't be seen from any cracks in the shutters or through the huge backyard sliding glass door. I remained in that position until morning. I didn't move. I just laid there staring into the dark house, hoping that I'd never hear that meow again. Nobody ever confessed to doing this, but to this day it freaks me out. I'm afraid of dark backyards at night. I always sleep with the backlight on now. Case file number 829, written by Prince Peach 007. An entire neighborhood spawned from nowhere. I live in a rural area, and there's a super long back road that connects the 2 parts of town. Normally, you get to the midway point and you can't go straight anymore. You must take a 90-degree turn to continue. Now, if you didn't turn, you would run into one of those huge swinging metal gates with a field behind it. Well, yesterday, I had to give my 21-year-old nephew a drive to his doctor's appointment, and I used the GPS system. We turn onto the long road and then start down it. The GPS says, in 100 feet, turn left. We both say, what the hell? And he is saying, you gotta get that thing fixed. And we're laughing. Well, we arrived at the section and there was a left turn now, where before there had been a field. There was a whole neighborhood down there. Now we are both quiet and he says, yo, like how and when did this get here? We drive that road every day. I even asked my husband and he laughed at me saying, there's no left turn. I went back today and it's still there. Case file number 830, written by Chells 182. The Cigarette Anomaly. My boyfriend and I stopped at a gas station earlier before heading to his father's for dinner. I was running in to get myself a drink and he asked if I would grab him a pack of cigarettes. I specifically got him a cheaper brand than what he buys himself. I got the shorts because he likes to taste better than the 100s for this specific brand. We get to his dad's, eat dinner, he wants to go outside to smoke. I grabbed a new pack from my purse and hand it to him. He unpacks it, rips the cellophane, tears off the little shiny paper inside and throws it out, and we go out to the porch and he smokes. About an hour later, we got into the car to go home. He pulls out a pack of cigarettes from his coat pocket, packs it, opens it, and says, wait a minute, where's the open pack? You grabbed me 2 packs? Well, I most certainly did not grab him 2 packs. The pack he opened in the car is the exact same cigarettes he opened inside an hour earlier. No idea how this happened. I thought maybe he had just forgotten that he got himself a pack earlier, but it's not even the same brand he buys for himself. His father doesn't smoke, so he would have certainly noticed if we left it there. I was expecting to find a second pack in my purse or in his coat, but so far none have showed up. Also, I know smoking is gross, so spare me the criticism. I've quit entirely and he's cut back by half his daily intake. Something to be proud of. Hi there. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on Patreon or just join the channel here. I have special horror stories that I narrate for members. Either way, I greatly appreciate it. Now on to the next story. Case notes for file 823. The Chinese Master of Spacetime. So we know that inanimate objects like, spoons or tennis balls or towel rods, they can vanish and reappear. Phase in and out of our dimension, I suppose. Can people as well? There have been a few stories reported of this. The most prominent one I remember reading myself is there was this kid that went down a water slide, one of those that are fully enclosed so you can't see the person going down it when they're inside, from the outside. And the kid didn't reemerge until like 15 to 20 minutes later, and other people were going down the slide too. Whoever was in charge at the top just didn't think anything was wrong until later on he remembered. So he physically wasn't there anymore until he reappeared. Maybe something similar happened here? This man, the Chinese master of spacetime, phased out, was moved forward in space, and then reemerged at that bus stop. Although I'm sure if that happened to him, he must have been confused out of his mind. It all makes some sense though, physically. Outside of a soul, if we have one, we're all just matter, excitations in the various fields of the universe. If an inanimate object can be moved or phased out, stands to reason that we could be too. Or, the man didn't phase out, he was duplicated. That could be a possible way to explain doppelgangers too. Although I think there's a separate side to that as well, because often people report feeling uneasy around a doppelganger. In this case, it seemed like he was just a normal man, just a copy of him. The other unlikely but possible explanation is that these were identical twins playing a prank. I've seen some videos of this happening, though usually not so elaborate and separated by great distances. But yeah, if you have an identical twin, and you dress the same, have the same takeout, you could give people a lot of mind-warped events, that's for sure. So it could have been just something as simple as that. Case notes for the creepy file number 58. Yoo-hoo from the darkness. So I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. What would I do if I heard, while walking my dog, in the darkness, yoo-hoo? I would be freaked out. So I think we share that, and I would have bolted inside. So I guess I would have done the exact same thing. I don't know if I'd assume it's supernatural, and it might not be. It might just be some really twisted, messed up person just playing a prank. It's not really a prank in this case. This is a bit too terrifying. Case notes for file 824. The mysterious case of solar teleportation. So I was fixated on the small point that you mentioned about the sun flowing, sort of like moving ever so slightly, but in a way that shouldn't be possible. Obviously, the sun does move across the sky, but very, very slowly throughout the day. I think that's the point. And when you saw the sun flow, that was the 45 or 50 minute time gap that you hopped through. It is possible, as you explained it, that maybe somehow you blacked out, were on the side of the road, and just waiting, and then your consciousness came back and then brought you back to driving, and then you noticed the sun was a bit further ahead in its natural movement than it should have been. I think that was the moment where it signifies the time jump. Now, if you didn't black out, it could be another one of those cases of space-time anomalies while driving, and you say there wasn't much traffic, so maybe this only happened to you. You entered some sort of space-time warp, anomaly, wormhole, and you didn't hop forward in space, only time. Although it's even more mysterious when you mention that you felt uneasy as soon as you got on the highway, so presumably before you entered this anomaly. Was your subconscious able to detect this anomaly ahead of time? Huh. If time is buffered, then maybe our subconscious is all wired into everything that's happening. The subconscious is just... well, not just, but we're picking up on a lot that's going on, including the future, because it's buffered. And your subconscious knew you're gonna go through something very, very weird right up ahead. Maybe. Pretty cool. Case notes for the bonus file. A house that costs more than money. So how this is playing out in my mind. You buy the house, sign the papers, finalize the transaction, and then realize, oh boy, you bought the house for more than just money. Maybe your soul was involved as well, your friend's soul. If people really do worship the devil or the occult, demons, anything that's unknown, does that actually result in manifestations of pure evil in that environment? Although as you describe it, you were just creeped out in that room, but generally the vibe of the house was positive. If there is some sort of evil, malevolent force, a demon, a devil, it doesn't seem like you'd get the impression that everything was copacetic, besides in that one room that was just a bit off. Maybe just weird people that had a slightly unsettling room, for whatever reason. Case notes for the creepy file number 59. My friend was a murderer. They say that you can never truly know another human being. You can connect with them generally on the surface. Maybe you can dig a couple inches deeper into their psyche. But ultimately, no one knows what everyone else is thinking. No one is in their mind, examining every thought, peering through the processes by which we end up making choices. That you knew this friend would be very unsettling, because presumably you didn't assume he was a murderer or capable of that. Part of the story, right? We don't even know ourselves entirely. We don't know what we're going to do in a day from now, or a week, or a month, or 10 years. Will most of us become murderers? No, I expect not. I hope not. Until we're faced with challenges, until we're faced with all the minutiae of life, we don't really know what we're going to do. We can only try to imagine. Place ourselves in solid foundations of morality. It's the only real pathway, in my opinion. Then you have a proper guide. If you're going at it without any guide, that's going to lead you astray. In the end, I think the best choice is just to ask yourself, how would I feel if someone else acted the same way that I'm acting now? Or might act, want to act. And then if you think, yeah, I'd be fine with that. Seems reasonable to go through with it. But if you think, oh, I would hate that. Put yourself in their shoes. Maybe don't do it then. Pretty sure someone wouldn't want to be murdered. Case notes for the bonus file. The Ethereal Intruders. So if these were entities or monsters, I wonder if the knocking at the door was sort of the lore of crossing the threshold, where these monsters, entities, malevolent forces typically need permission to enter the body, or to cross into the home. Maybe in this case, the home was your bedroom, or considered your bedroom. So because you didn't answer, they couldn't come in, and they just left and went somewhere else. It is an interesting and perhaps comforting thought, that you can only suffer evil if you allow it into your life. And if you simply say, I reject you, then it can't affect you. I don't know if that's true. Certainly not for every evil, and certainly not for humans. Human-on-human PvP is unlimited and unrestricted. For supernatural forces, maybe. Case notes for file 825. The Transdimensionall debit card. Right, so this is another classic DOP event, disappearing object phenomena, and seems like lately they're all just coming back. You guys are kinda lucky, honestly. I want my tennis balls back. Still, what strikes me as very peculiar in this is that it always comes back in the exact same spot that it left in. Or most frequently does. It almost seems like an intent or will. Because otherwise, the object is still bound by gravity, and it's even traveling with the car itself. Even if it was bound by the Earth's gravity, the car itself isn't generating gravity to any extent that would negate the planet, so the card would still be tethered with Earth, but not the car. So how is it still connected to the car? If it's out of phase with that matter, it would just phase right through the car. For that matter, it would still be pulled by gravity and phase right through the ground. So there's something containing it when it's moving outside of our dimensional realm. Or it's literally not out of phase but just not rendered at all. So there's two possibilities. Either it's being contained by some technology or entity in this other dimension, or the universe simply isn't rendering it, and the information is there for the position it's supposed to be in, but it's not being loaded. Case notes for file 826. The mysterious case of the lost chai. Right, so if I judge people for having too much coffee, I would be the biggest hypocrite on earth. You know, I live on coffee. It is what it is. Though I try to stick to just black coffee, so at least I'm not loading up on too many calories from all the cream and sugar and all that. Though that is delicious. You know, a cappuccino, that's my mortal sin. I especially love this glitch because you're not depending purely on your memory. You had the Ring camera system set up, so you saw yourself entering with the chai on top of the pizza box. Then you open the pizza box and there's no chai. And obviously you didn't see the container anywhere, you didn't see the cup anywhere. You cleaned the whole house, checked the car, even though you already entered and you had the Ring camera footage to know that you didn't have the coffee. That's really good. At least you're not going completely crazy, like you didn't buy the coffee at all. You did, it just vanished, which is a different form of crazy, but not really crazy. You're not crazy. Trying to make sense of it sometimes, clearly it just glitches out. Maybe it's just trying to keep us on our toes. Let's go with that. Staking our fish, our bacon, now our coffee. I don't know what to do. Seems like we have to go to war with the universe. Or the extra-dimensional entities taking our stuff. Case notes for file 827. The pickup truck that vanished before my eyes. By your description, indeed, even a Tesla Model S with the rocket mode enabled couldn't quite pull this off. I'm trying to label these types of glitches where people are seeing into another universe. Universal peering, I suppose. And in that universe, there was 3 cars there. The BMW, the blue minivan, and the white pickup truck. Although it's weird that he had his turn signal on, turning right, even though he was on the left lane. That's just bad driving, I suppose. And, you know, that happens everywhere, so that's not inconceivable. You know what it reminds me of? It's almost like the universe is losing cohesion, and we're in the beginning phases of a server merger, where if you haven't played MMOs, there's different servers that people have their characters stored on, and they play on those realms. But sometimes the population decreases to balance that out, so those players can still play with other people. They merge servers. They'll have a low population server merge with a higher one, or a medium one. Sometimes even multiple servers merging together. And it kind of feels like that happens often in the universe. The multiverse, I should say. Not population dependent, but maybe iteration dependent. Maybe we're too similar to other copies, so there's no reason for us to exist, so they're being merged back in. Case notes for file 828. Traveling at the speed of glitches. Probably a classic case of quantum immortality, but in a duo sense, which plenty of stories of that happening now. People dying, and then being transposed to a new universe, but with the person they were next to. I don't know if the limitation or the requirement is simply that you die next to each other, like in physical space in that universe, or that you're connected in some more emotional or familial way, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. There's just so many bad drivers these days. I mean, I don't even drive personally, but I know I just walk around and bike around sometimes, and the amount of people that just don't care or don't notice you, it's kind of baffling. You're driving tons of metal at extremely high speeds. Probably want to pay attention, right? I think people lose sight of how crazy that kind of is. Driving. Obviously important and necessary, but crazy at the same time. probably someone ran the red light at the roundabout. I know roundabouts are supposed to be safer. From the US and Canada, don't really have those here. But even at modest speeds, crashes can be fatal. That would account well for this story, I think. Case notes for file 829. An entire neighborhood spawned from nowhere. This is interesting. It's sort of quantum immortality, but Mandela effect, but your nephew does remember it that way. So unless this is another case of dual quantum immortality, you both died and now you're both in a new universe, that could explain it, but I'm not sure. That's a major difference between universes. Usually they're very small. This is big league changes. Why did you jump to a universe so far away? Maybe in all other cases, somehow you were all dead until this universe, in the great multiverse. Even if you jump 1,000,000 away from the original, there's still almost infinite more. Googleplexes more to choose from. I do think if we die and we are transposed to a new universe, we do follow a set path based on iterations, differences between universes. The more different, the further away it is. Well, further, I mean, I don't know how it applies exactly in terms of space between universes, if you understand what I mean. The distances between iterations of the universes in the multiverse. Case notes for file 830, the cigarette anomaly. What's really weird about this one is, you could say, okay, he just forgot that he bought a second pack and it was just this off-brand that you bought him as well for some reason. Maybe he wanted to save money. But the fact that there isn't a second pack anywhere to be found, literally is just like the pack you bought him was reset in time to being unopened. It seems a lot of objects are just losing cohesion. They're duplicating themselves, going out of phase, reappearing, resetting in time. Something wonky is going on. Very unnerving in a sense. And even that story of the dead pixel in Spacetime, just a black dot floating above this person's threshold to the door or something. That's unnerving, isn't it?